the commissioners in to finding a solution to the
Yeah.
problem?
Well, communication.
Okay.
I mean, I think we listen to each other,
Mm,
and almost, I would say 90% of the time, we agree with
mm.
each other. I mean, and we're looking out for the residents, not our personal. Do you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
I
Yeah.
understand.
So I just think we have a great commission.
It is very important to
Right.
communicate. And so, what challenges, if you could kind of look into your crystal ball, what challenges do you see that we face as a city in the next couple of years?
I'm not sounding redundant, but flooding,
Okay.
infrastructure,
Mm.
affordable housing. I mean, those are some of the main goals. I mean, I would.
Check, check, check. Hey, 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 hey. Hey, hey. All right.
Thank you. Briefly, let me just outline the procedure that will be followed. A case will be called, and if at that time, if you are the respondent, if you could come forward and stand at the lectern, which would be to your right. It's the other one, that one over there. And it's that time, state your name and be sworn in by the board clerk. If you are not the respondent but are here on their behalf, if you could explain what your relationship is to the respondent and how it is that you are authorized to speak in their behalf. Following that, the city will then, inspector will then proceed to give the overview of the matter that is that you have been cited for and outline the pertinent facts. And following that, you will then be given an opportunity to respond and make such arguments as you feel may be appropriate. And if there are things that are somewhat in dispute, there may be some back and forth during this proceeding where there may be questions both that I may ask of the city or of the respondent. And following that, then a decision will be rendered and we move on to the next matter. This morning, we only have 6 cases, one of which I understand is on Zoom. And I believe we have, it looks to be 4 respondents, so somebody is missing. When we get to that case, we will skip over it and save it for the end. And if that person shows up, then they can have an opportunity to respond. And if they don't, then it would be essentially a default on their part, provided that they have been notified of this hearing. The only other change I would like to make to the agenda is case, is it 4?
Yes, sir.
RTL 02-2513, Garley R. St. Croix and Estevelli Maristal. And my understanding is the respondent is a medical doctor and needs to be back at his clinic. So we will take this one out of order and take it first. Okay. With that said, are there any announcements?
No, sir.
Okay. The third item on the agenda is approval of the January 28 minutes, which I have done and I have provided to the board secretary. And before we do the hearing of cases, we will need to swear in any members of the staff who are going to render testimony today.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anything further that needs to be added at this time?
Not for me.
Okay. Then, without further ado, we will call case number 4, RTL 02-2513, Garley R. St. Croix and Estevelli Maristal, cited for failure to correct violations of Land Development Code, Article 4, Section 4.1.a, Article 5, Section 5.2.a.2, at 1116 St. Augustine Road.
Sir, could you state your name, please?
My name is Gali Washer St. Croix.
And raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Yates, if you could proceed with the particulars of this matter.
The case before you was a zoning violation. This case was field generated. The property is zoned SFR 5. Other accommodations known as short-term rentals are not permitted in this zoning district. The violation was first observed January 31st, 2025, and they were notified the same day. The property stopped actively advertising as of February 4th, 2025. The daily posted rate was $150, and it displayed 2 reviews. The check-in, check-out time were shown as 3 p.m. and 11 a.m. These actions are irreparable and irreversible in nature, and due to the actions of the property owner, the city is requesting a one-time fine of $1,000.
Okay.
My name is Melissa Diaz. I'm an assistant city attorney position. I will have to read this before every case unless waived. It is the city's position that the beneficial gain to the property owner who is advertising such conduct is prohibited by city's code. The effects of renting property or holding out property as a vacation rental cannot be reversed or repaired. Property is advertised worldwide marketing as a destination that draws people from all over the world for principal special events such as Daytona 500 races, Bike Week, Biketoberfest, and throughout the spring and summer to the world's most famous beach. The property may also be marketed as a draw to nearby destinations such as Disney World and the Space Coast. Once the property is advertised, they are never truly unadvertised. The reality of the World Wide Web is that you cannot push something such as an advertisement back into the tube. Information posted today can be printed, saved, forwarded, retweeted, and even copied and posted on other websites. Limiting the city to the only solution for the advertisement is to require that all postings be removed. Effects. The information such as wide effects, luring patrons under contract to participate in unlawful stays in our city. The patrons risk poor health, poor safety, and welfare due to unregulated or self-regulated vacation accommodations that patrons enter into at their own risk. One single day of advertising can potentially book a property for the whole year. These promised stays are potentially to the detriment of the patrons and definitely to the detriment of the licensed hotels, motels, and lawful vacation rentals that have gone through proper zoning, regulations, proper inspections, proper licensing, proper insurance, and proper taxation as required by law. To weigh them against an unregulated short-term rental who has not gone through these regulatory safeguards is unfair and harmful to the regulated business, the patrons, and the community. The transit nature of these rentals limit the means of enforcement, typically to identifying the advertisement. By the time code enforcement arrives, the property and the transient patrons are typically gone from the property or claim misleading relationships that are often contradicted by the advertised visitor comments. The monetary effects of these unlawful rentals is tax avoidance, inadequate insurance coverage, and unfair business competition against the lawful accommodation and lawful vacation rentals. The community effects that this transit business use within unauthorized residential neighborhoods affects density, parking, noise, and safety. They affect the peaceful enjoyment expected in residential neighborhoods. It diverts from traditional and reliable residential norms. There is a demand from the business community to our commission, which has led to a request for a strong deterrent to those that are raking in profits, avoiding local taxes, avoiding zoning requirements and regulatory controls. We have all seen the rentals going for amounts as much as several $1,000s a week and realize substantial fines. And we realize that substantial fines is the only deterrent tool available. By the time we arrive, they say they stopped the beneficial gains, but they have already been realized. State law adopted by the city, it defines vacation rentals to include advertising for transient guests. Therefore, the city requests a finding that these violations are irreparable or irreversible in nature. Also, that the gravity of these violations justifies a fine up to $15,000.
Okay. Ms. Diaz, before you, well, I can ask you from here, you have a microphone. And is that the city's position regarding why this particular violation is considered to be irreparable and irreversible and thus subject to an enhanced penalty?
Yes, that's correct, but we're saying up to 15,000.
Okay.
Not necessarily that each of them will be.
All right. Mr. Yates, do you have anything further?
No, sir.
Okay. Dr. St. Croix,
Yes.
this is now your turn.
First of all, I want to thank everyone for your time and kindness, especially Kevin, who was responsive, and John, also that I met at the office. I just wanted to mention three things. Number one, I live in Edgewater and I bought this property in Daytona because my house was flooded during the last hurricane. Gates fell off, and I had this as an option because I work in Daytona Advent Health in Halifax as an interventional cardiologist. So we were planning to do a long-term rental, meaning 1 year, and we have a signed executed contract for that. In the meantime, we close at the end of June, and then in the meantime, my wife and I, we thought that we could put the property on Furnish Finder and Airbnb because we had asked our realtor, is it allowed to do it? And his answer was, yes, people do it, and you just get a warning if they find out that you do it. So the first thing I wanted to mention is I did not know, and I as soon as I received the notification, we stopped immediately what we were doing, and we emailed Kevin. We went in person to speak with Kevin and to June because we really want to abide by the law. The second thing I wanted to mention is that currently the house is not advertised, and it has a long-term 1 year contract, and I have proof of that. I have the executed contract on this file. And the third thing I'm asking, because I'm at fault and I realized that I want to follow the law and I was misguided, is for a second chance, if it is possible to just give a warning and not paying $1,000. I would have never done that if I knew I had to pay such amount. And I always do everything by the book and by the law. I wish I knew, but given I'm in trouble right now, I'm just asking for a chance.
Okay. As I said, this is sort of a back and forth type proceeding where the city presents its position. You present your arguments I guess you would say in opposition, and now the ball's back in your court. What does the city have to say?
I can corroborate that he did indeed cooperate immediately and work diligently down the ad as soon as he was aware.
Okay. And what is the city recommending as far as a fine?
$1,000.
$1,000. Okay. I understand, Dr. St. Croix, that the irreparable and irreversible provision of the statute, of the code enforcement statute, and the provisions that have been adopted by the city allow them to assess a penalty of up to $15,000 for these types of violations. And fact is, several years ago when we started these proceedings, I was routinely assessing $15,000 violations. And subsequent to that, the city has tried to, it's my understanding, tried to take into account situations such as yours and others that have arisen, and have provided for reductions, or at least reductions in the amount that they sought. Instead of seeking the $15,000, and said they've recommended a lower amount. And that lower amount is what, if my understanding is correct, Mr. Yates, is what the city is requesting is $1,000.
Correct, sir.
Which is in line with similar type situations such as your situation, doctor. I know it may seem more than is typical in a code enforcement, but these proceedings, and the city has made quite clear over time, and as Ms. Diaz outlined, these proceedings are such that the city has wanted to try to make a statement to make sure that if my understanding is correct, that short-term rentals in areas that are not zoned for short-term rentals basically come to an end. So I'm taking into account all of the factors as well as what you've stated, the requests that the city has made to seek a reduced amount, and that would be in accord with what I have levied in past matters. So therefore, I am going to assess a fine of $1,000 and not the maximum, which would be $15,000. So therefore, in Case number 14, RTL 022513. I hereby find the respondent, Dr. Garley R. St. Croix and Estevelli Maristal, as the owners of the property at 1116 St. Augustine Road to have been in noncompliance of Article 4, Section 4.1A and Article 5, Section 5.2.8.2 of the Land Development Code, which prohibit short-term rentals in zoning districts not zoned for short-term rentals. Such violations are irreparable and irreversible because the improper benefit obtained by the owner and a damage surrounding neighborhood occurs, time the violation occurs, and cannot be undone as provided for by Section 162.09 1D Florida statutes, and the property had subsequently been brought into compliance on February 4th,
Yes, sir.
2025, and hereby order the respondent shall pay a fine in the amount of $1,000 and not violate that section of the Land Development Code again, and that for any future repeat violation, the respondent may be placed on a subsequent agenda for hearing before the special magistrate for consideration of a fine of up to $15,000 for each occurrence as per Chapter 162 Florida statutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Magistrate, if I could just say to Dr. St. Croix, if you still have a relationship with that realtor, the realtor should know, but if they don't know, if you could just share with them that that area just isn't a place that you were able to do the short-term rental, hopefully they'll pass along the right word and not have people operating in error.
Okay.
Thank you.
As far as details on payment, they'll mail you the info.
Right. We will now go back to the agenda and go back to case number 1, RTL 022510, Frederick O. Johnson, cited for failure to correct violations of Land Development Code Article 4, Section 4.1.A, Article 5, Section 5.2.8.2 at 148 West Sandalwood Court.
It's okay.
Okay.
We
And if-
brought a microphone. We would like that for the record, please. There you go.
That's very nice. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I had a knee replacement 2 weeks ago, so I'm a little off my keel, so I apologize.
My brother had new
Yes, it's yours. It's all yours. Thank you.
Okay, could you state your, well, he hasn't read the, did you read the,
Okay.
no, the case number?
Well, I've read the case number already.
Oh, well, okay.
Okay, and is it Miss Hammond?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If you could be sworn in, and then I will read your statement, and then if the city attorney's office
you
wishes
Mr.
to ask you any questions relative to it, they can.
statement, I
If
have
you-
her waive the reading.
No, he spoke about her stuff.
Oh, okay.
After she's sworn in.
If you could state your name, please.
Cherie Louise Hammond,
Is that S-H-E-R-O-Y?
1 R, 2 E's, SHERE, Hammond.
And raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay. I have before me a letter which I will have marked as Exhibit A in this proceeding. It states it's from Frederick Johnson, 100 Rosebank Road, Daytona Beach, Florida, 32114. To whom it may concern, I have been asked to appear before the special magistrate on February 25, 2025 at 9 o'clock a.m. in the City Commission chambers concerning a violation of City Code on 2 separate properties. I was told I would be given the opportunity to answer the charges, but I'm unfortunately not able to attend because of a medical appointment that cannot be changed. Cherie Hammond and I share the house at 100 Rosebank Road, and I would appreciate it if you would accept her as my spokesperson. She is absolutely aware of all of the details pertaining to both properties. She can answer any questions and totally act on my behalf. I apologize for the inconvenience. It says, thank you, sincerely, Frederick Johnson, and has a signature, and it's dated 2/20/2025, and I'd like to have that placed in the record as Exhibit A. And you may want to pass that down to the city attorney's office once it's been marked.
Oh, no, thank you. I was just mentioning to my co-counsel that I wish everyone brought a letter.
You're welcome.
All right. Mr. Yates.
The case before you is a zoning violation. This case was field generated. The property is zoned PDG. Other accommodations known as short-term rentals are not permitted in the zoning district. The violation was first observed January 24th, 2005. They were notified the same day. The property...
2025?
Yes, 2000, yeah. January 24th, 2025.
Yes.
The property stopped actively advertising the same day as well. The daily posted rate was $94, and the advertisement displayed 4 reviews. The check-in time were shown as 3 p.m. to 12 p.m., and the checkout time 11 a.m. These actions are irreparable and irreversible in nature, and due to the actions of the property owner requesting a one-time fine of $1,000.
All right. Ms. Diaz?
Good morning, Ms. Hammond. Long speech I read earlier, I have to read it for each case unless you waive the reading.
I can waive it, yes. I did listen to you.
Thank you.
I bring letters and I listen, so.
Thank you.
Okay, then let the record reflect that the respondent is agreeable to the record, including her previous statements regarding the city's position on these violations being irreparable and irreversible. And as I always point out to the respondents, that if you take exception with things that have been said, you will certainly have opportunity to state that. You were just putting their words in the record. Does the city have anything further?
No?
Ms. Hammond, do you have anything to say on behalf of Mr. Johnson?
We have 2 properties that were here, so there's 2 cases. And this particular one was the one we were trying to do. We were truly trying to do an Airbnb. There's no 2 ways about that. That's why we bought the property. Like the doctor, our real estate agent was all over, yes, you can rent, no problem. But we were very adamant about the HOA. Where we live, he and I share a house at 100 Rosebank. It is forbidden to rent. I don't care if it's for a day, a year, or 6 years. Our HOA prohibits rental. So that's how we thought things were, that things, you buy a piece of property and whatever your HOA says, you have to abide by. So in the case of 148 Sandalwood, our HOA clearly says you're allowed to rent. So we said, good, awesome, great. So we did try to do all of the right motions. My daughter also runs an Airbnb out of her home in Holly Hill. So we knew we had to call Miss June and pay $82 to register our property, which is what we tried to do. And it was Christmas time. So we called in, I had spoke with Miss June, and she had explained that the website is new, going up, and that you can't really get the districts or register your property right now, but you'll have 90 days, and that by the middle of March, the website should be in a good place, and you'll be able to go on and see districts and see everything very clearly. In the meantime, go ahead and rent. Of course, I did not give her the detail of the property, and we didn't look it up to say you're allowed to do short-term rentals. I said, I want to do Airbnb. You said, you can't rent it, you can't register as of now, but don't worry about it, thinking everything was where it was supposed to be. But evidently, after speaking to Mr. Yates and finding out reality, that property is not allowed to be used unless it is for 6 months and a day, which we were very graciously explained everything to. But we were completely unaware, and we did take it down the minute a letter showed up. We stopped immediately. We were, just trying to abide by all the rules, but basically wound up failing on every level anyway. But that's the best I can say for the property at 148. We did have every intention on Airbnb in that property, and we did spend $5,000 getting it ready in December, and we thought everything was in place. And we thought we had till the website was right to register that property. But because it's zoned incorrectly not in our favor of short-term rental, we were mistaken and were ignorant of the law, which is totally our fault. So I don't have any other thing but that for that property.
Okay. Now, I see, now I understand why the Rosebank Road has
Yes.
come up. You have this other property.
Right.
And I'm going to ask the city whether we want to hear both of these sort of together at this point.
I take no issue with that. Yeah, if you want to bring them together,
Okay.
that's fine.
And because you started to say that the
Right.
Rosebank property
Right.
was in a different HOA and had different considerations.
But what happens is why you do want them together is that our property at 100 Rosebank, I live right next door to the president of the council. You're not allowed to rent in any way, shape, or form. So 2 years ago, I had an Airbnb legal, everything good about it. And I wanted to, because my daughter said there were changes to the websites and things, I wanted to very much familiarize myself. The pictures that I took are of Frederick's bedroom and Frederick's bathroom. It is not rentable. It never was rentable, but they're the photos that I used. And I put that online trying to see exactly how to use the website again, how do you, do charges or where it goes. And I used it as a learning tool. But Mr. Yates had explained once I put that on the internet, it really was advertising that property. Although you were not able to rent that property, he had pointed out I had 45 reviews. Those 45 reviews were from 2 years ago when I had they keep your same host information. There was absolutely zero reviews because we absolutely did not ever rent that ever in any way. But if he had said he went all the way through, all they were doing was asking for the money, and not to be rude, but had you tried to pay, we did not have that on instant pay. You had to have permission to rent. So if someone had slipped through my loops that I was trying to learn and actually got to the point of rental, we would have declined it and not accepted it. We did not have it so that anybody could just rent anytime and go rent it. It was not on instant rental. Whereas 148 Sandalwood was on instant rental because we thought we were in the gold. We thought we were going strong on that one. But the 100 Rosebank, I promise to you, I can show you, these were photographs of his bedroom. We were not renting that property in any way. We would not have done anything. It's a homeowner's community. You have to own the home to live there. So that's all I have for that.
Okay. What is the city's position?
Well, the city would just like to add that the fact that it was advertised is enough. It doesn't have to be actually carried out, but.
After speaking with our team and sort of looking at the facts of the case, we feel that while she definitely did violate the rules in both cases, that there was some attempt at doing it the right way. So we'd like to revise our ask to $750 for case number 1 and $750 for case number 2.
Okay. Well, I have heard the particulars of case number 2, but I'll have to actually act on that separately. Because I know they're related, but they're not,
Right.
to some extent, but they are. I understand your argument
Understood.
relative to that.
And I understand your position also.
Mr. Yates, before even though we will be hearing, did you have anything with respect? I heard the city attorney say that, yes, the code says that simply putting something out for rent trips the threshold for this ordinance.
Correct.
And you have probably heard me say on a number of occasions about, in other proceedings, why didn't you just call the city and ask what you could do there? And that is something that Ms. Hammond has in fact done. And so with respect to the other property, that Rose Bank Road, which according to what Ms. Hammond has stated, couldn't be rented but was sort of a trial area, but it was set out. Were there evidence of rentals, reviews, and things of that nature?
No reviews on there at all.
Okay.
However, Mr. Magistrate, if I could just point out for the magistrate, something we've kind of wrestled with in the past, and Ms. Hammond kind of spells it out pretty clearly, and she does that in a fair way, just way. But the what we wrestle with is the circumstances says that even when it's just blocked, it's really within the possessor or owner's control and not really prohibited. So we still are relying on the sincerity and honesty of the owner for whatever adjustments we make, because while the owner said it was her personal intent, objectively, nothing really prohibited her from allowing anyone that saw the ad to be able to utilize the rental.
Okay. We are going to hear these separately, but let me tell you where I am prone to right now. And that is that I would, the city is asking for $750 in case number 1. And it would, and in, I believe, $750 in case number 2.
Yes, sir.
My preference right now would be $750 in case number 1 and $250 in case number 2.
We don't have any objection to that.
I mean, I understand that there's interrelationships and things, and to anyone who might be listening in or anything, it would be helpful in the future if something like what you stated with your second property association, if you brought a copy of the association documents, it says, because I've seen a number of these where the association strictly prohibit any type of short-term rentals, and I don't doubt what you're saying. It's just nice to be able to put that in the record as a supplement.
Right.
Sometimes if someone says something, then everybody starts saying it thereafter, and I like to have something to try and base it on. But this is kind of a unique one where I'm trying to give some relief because you tried to do the right thing.
And if you were to compare them, the one on 100 Rosebank, it is prohibited to rent in any way for any amount of time.
Right.
But the one on 148, it just says rentals are acceptable. It doesn't say 1 day, 10 days, 60 days, or anything like that. But it would be great, and I know y'all are working on it, but to be able to go onto the website and actually see a map that shows what's zoned where. Can you see it now?
Yeah, no, it's been there the whole time.
Oh.
It's on the GIS section. It's not in IMS. It's on the GIS map. And yes, that's been available. It has never not been available.
Okay, well, then I
the city
needed
also-
more guidance. There you go.
Yeah, the city would like to add for anyone listening, just for the record, that an HOA law does not supersede city. Just because an HOA or a realtor
Correct.
says you can do it, you should still check with the city code and regulations.
Right. But in this situation, the respondent is stating that since the HOA doesn't allow it, and she recognizes that the city doesn't allow it, that she's trying to, she's
of
not
course,
rented
I'm
it.
saying for the record.
Okay. So therefore, in case number 1, RTL 022510, I hereby find the respondent, Frederick O. Johnson, as the owner of the property at 148 West Sandalwood Court to have been in noncompliance with Article 4, Section 4.1a and Article 5, Section 5.2.8.2 of the Land Development Code, which prohibits short-term rentals in zoning districts not zoned for short-term rentals, and that such violations are irreparable and irreversible because the improper benefit obtained by the owner and the damage surrounding the neighborhood occurs at the time the violation occurs and cannot be undone as provided for by Section 162.09 1D Florida statute, and the property has subsequently brought into compliance on January 24, 2025, and hereby order respondent shall pay a fine in the amount of $750 and not violate that section of the Land Development Code again, and that for any future repeat violation, respondent may be placed on subsequent agenda for hearing before the special magistrate for consideration of a fine of up to $15,000 for each occurrence as per Chapter 162 Florida statutes. A lot of that is what I just stated relates to the future, and strange as it may seem, I have people come back. We have people who come back who, after being told that if they violate this ordinance again, they can be cited up to $15,000, and then they act surprised that somehow that they can be fined up to that amount. And we just want to make it clear that no means no. Okay. So that finishes that one, and now we'll just do case number 2, RTL 022511, Frederick Johnson, is cited for failure to correct violations of Land Development Code Article 4, Section 4.1a, and Article 5, Section 5.2.8.2 at 100 Rosebank Road. The Miss Sherry, I lost the name.
Hammond. Louise Hammond.
Miss Hammond is here on behalf of Mr. Johnson, and an exhibit was provided in the preceding case, number 1, where Mr. Hammond had authorized Miss Hammond to speak on his behalf. And if, Mr. Yates, if you can quickly summarize the city's case.
Yeah, the case before you is a zoning violation. This case was field generated. The property is zoned PDG. Other accommodations known as short-term rentals are not permitted in the zoning district. The violation was first observed January 17th, 2025, and they were notified the same day. The property stopped actively advertising as of January 21st, 2025. The daily posted rate was $58, and the check-in, check-out time were shown as 3 p.m. and 11 a.m. These actions are irreparable and irreversible in nature, and due to the actions of the property owner, the city is requesting a one-time fine of $250.
Ms. Hammond, just have you waive the reading again?
I will waive
would you-
that reading again.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, let the record reflect that Ms. Hammond has waived the city re-entering into the record, or has waived the city repeating its presentation regarding these violations being irreparable and irreversible, and that presentation that was provided in the previous case, number 1, will be incorporated into this matter.
I believe it was previous case 4.
Case number 1, RTL 02.
She waived.
Okay, so it was from case
1.
number 4,
Yes,
yes. Okay. Does Ms. Hammond need to be sworn in again for this matter?
No, she's already sworn in.
Okay, so we're fine on that. At this point, Ms. Hammond, do you have anything further to add other
I
than
just
what
had
we
a couple
talked
of
about in the
questions.
previous matter?
How soon do I have to pay the fines? Do I have a little bit of time to do that?
Yeah.
The $750 and the $250 has to be
he'll
paid
give you
today?
30
or?
days.
Oh, great.
If you need additional time, then I can check with admin staff and
Okay.
work something out.
Call Miss June is always the answer. I got you.
What
Just look more cl-
what happens is that a fine is levied here, and you get 30 days to pay it. If you don't pay it, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, it then goes to me, and a lien essentially, and the order is signed and placed in the public record with the county clerk's office, and now becomes something that runs with the land for, is it 30 years that these are good
20
for?
years.
20 years.
30 days sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah, and so it's a whole lot simpler and cheaper generally to resolve them up front than it is 20 years from now, because they draw interest. It's not a lot, but it does accumulate over time. Does the city have anything further that it wishes to place in the record?
Nothing further, John.
I
Okay.
have two more things if I could ask questions still.
Please do.
Number one is if you need to send correspondence, we don't get mail at the 148 Sandalwood, but at the 100 Rosebank, anything mailed to him, he will get there. Just so you know, because I know the 148 might get mail, but we don't get mail there,
Then
so.
make sure to correct the property appraisers. Just go on the property appraiser's website. You can update your official mailing address.
Okay.
Because we do have to send things to the official addresses.
Okay, great.
It's
That's great. It's already there in the official address, so no
It's
worries.
fairly simple, but this is probably the least of your worries because your ad valorem tax bill will probably go to that address. And if you don't pay your taxes, and that's usually a few $1,000s, you will then be remiss and have to deal with all of that
Right.
proceedings.
The first case is going to Sandalwood,
Okay,
and the second one is going to Rosebank.
Okay.
I can send copies to both.
that would be great. That would be great. The only other question that I have is, we were told that in that zoning, we are able to rent for 6 months and a day. Do we still go on to that website to do that registration? Right?
And then you're good to go after that.
Okay. Great. I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. Therefore, in case number 2, RTL, first, before the city have anything further to add?
No, the city does not have anything further. Thank you.
Okay. In case number 2, RTL 022511, I hereby find the respondent Frederick Johnson as the owner of the property at 100 Rosebank Road to have been in noncompliance of Article 4, Section 4.1.a and Article 5, Section 5.2.8.2 of the Land Development Code, which prohibits short-term rentals in zoning districts not zoned for short-term rentals. Such violations are irreparable and irreversible because the improper benefit obtained by the owner and the damage to the surrounding neighborhood occurs time the violation occurs and cannot be undone as provided for by Section 162.091D Florida statutes, and the property subsequently brought into compliance on January 21,
Yes, sir.
2025. And hereby order, respondent shall pay a fine in the amount of $250 and not violate that section of the Land Development Code again, and that for any future repeat violation, the respondent may be placed on subsequent agenda for hearing before the special magistrate for consideration of a fine of up to $15,000 for each occurrence as per Chapter 162 Florida statutes. Okay, Ms. Heyman, that completes
Thank you
this
very
matter
much.
for you and Mr. Johnson.
So if I go into that website, it'll show me.
Yep, if you just Google search.
Yeah.
All right. The next case on the agenda is case number 3, RTL 022512. The respondent being William A. Brown, who was cited for failure to correct violations of Land Development Code, Article 4, Section 4.1.a, Article 5, Section 5.2.8.2 at 619 Glenview Boulevard. Is Mr. Brown present, or?
Can we turn the hand mic on, please?
I hear it. Okay, Mr. Brown, you'll need to be sworn in by the clerk. Can you swear in, Mr.
Yeah.
Brown?
I was asking if you read the case. Could you state your name, please?
William Brown.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah, I do.
All right. Mr. Yates,
The case before you is a zoning violation. This case was field generated. The property is zoned BR1. Other accommodations known as short-term rentals are not permitted in the zoning district. The violation was first observed January 31st, 2025, and the violation was first notified on January 31st, 2025. The property stopped actively advertising as of February 4th, 2025. The daily posted rate was $91. It had 206 reviews. The check-in time was shown as 4 p.m. to 2 a.m. The checkout time is 11 a.m. These actions are irreparable and irreversible in nature, and due to the actions of the property owner, the city is requesting a one-time fine of $1,000.
Okay, Ms. Diaz?
Brown,
Wave away.
thank you.
Okay, let the record reflect that Mr. Brown has waived Ms. Diaz repeating the city's position on the irreparable and irreversible as set forth in case number 4, and those arguments that were presented by the city in case number 4 are hereby incorporated into this matter. Okay, does the city have anything further?
No, sir.
Okay, Mr. Brown?
First of all, where does it say other accommodations are short-term rentals? Like who came up with that? The word other accommodations means, I mean, accommodations don't have anything to do with lease duration. Like who generated that wonderful sounding phrase?
I don't believe we have the name of the person on file who came
But
up
where is it? Where I've looked in everything on the Volusia County website, on the BR1 zoning. Where is that? You have it here, but where? I mean, how was I supposed to find
So
it?
it's of our city ordinance. Do we have extra copies of this?
City Land Development Code.
Let me see if I have an extra copy to hand you. It's if you're taking notes of our land development code, correct? It's section 5.2.A2, and then there's a couple. Let me see if I have an extra copy of this to give you.
I mean, landlords are supposed to be looking at. I mean, I couldn't
Yep, I
find
have an
it
extra one.
if you paid me.
For the permit?
The
Okay. Would you like to see it? Would you like to see it first?
I would like to see it.
the permitted use charge that you're looking for.
Okay. Yeah, I tried to look for that. and I
5.2.
5.2? Okay, I think I have an extra copy of that. I have another
Yeah,
one
it's
here.
just like a little single.
This one.
Well, it's there.
Okay,
You can get-
if you, Ms.
I mean-
Diaz, if you want an unmarked up version, there, you can use that. Okay.
That one's highlighted. Let me see. It's unmarked. Yeah.
It's also in your.
Does it say other accommodations known as short-term rentals somewhere?
Have there.
Okay, so
Oh, it does? But I mean, where,
I don't know what that arrow is.
I never seen it.
I gave one to Magistrate. That was another copy
Oh,
I
you
was
don't have
going to
any
give.
other?
Okay. Well,
Yeah, you can take this copy if you.
Okay, well.
It's in your use chart.
That's fine. I just never saw it.
Asterisk.
Yeah,
I don't know if you don't have it up there, then you have to present it.
no, my cut of the use chart doesn't have the.
I know it's hard to get to the use chart. It was 5. It was 5.2, right?
Wait, what happened?
Oh, here it is, right here.
There?
This is reference, it gives a cross-reference from.
Okay, should I have her print a copy of this as well?
Let's see what. Table 5.2.A3, principal
Okay.
use tables. These are your zones. This is for.
So if you're
permitted.
also taking notes on that, I would add
That's your other space, right?
in the land development code, table 5.2 7.A.3 at the bottom, there's an asterisk. That's also where it's referenced. That's where that text comes from.
Is this saying that vacation rentals are different than short-term lodging, or is that the same thing? It seems like short-term lodging and it says 509242 FS.
Yes, that's correct.
Yes, that's correct.
FS is Florida statutes, right?
Yes, FS is Florida statute. That's correct.
So is this a Florida thing or
Yeah.
or a Daytona thing?
So the ones that say FS are Florida statutes. When it just says section and doesn't reference the FS, that is our land development code,
Okay.
Mr.
which you
Magistrate.
can find online.
I mean, this whole thing is very vague and confusing.
But this is my
It's-
personal notes, that's why.
I know, I'm just
then you
saying,
can
like,
stand
it's
out.
not crystal clear. Like, the word accommodations is very vague. It's not, I mean, it doesn't mean short-term rentals. I mean, it's accommodations. It's just very strange. And
Brown.
Mr. Brown, if Mr. Magistrate, if it's okay, I don't mind addressing Mr. Brown.
no.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
You're in the city attorney's
Yes.
position down there, you and Ms. Diaz, so if you'd like to address that, please do.
Certainly, Mr. Brown, I'm Anthony Jackson, I'm the Deputy City Attorney. The section that we're referencing, that other accommodations, as you said, you're right, it is, short-term rental as we're looking at it right now is from the state statute. It's a state statute that prohibits, it allows for
How do you define
jurisdictions,
short-term?
hold on, allows for jurisdictions to have short-term rental. But it has an exception in the statute, and the exception is those cities that, or jurisdictions that had already had existing laws that prohibited that use in certain areas. Those existing laws are grandfathered or they're considered non-conforming uses. So you have a use, or if in our city, places where we prohibit it, that becomes something that's not allowed because we already have an existing law that says it's not allowed. Our prohibitions are shown in our charts are shown to our residents in our law through our tables and those tables have on the top of the table. And unfortunately, as you said, your ability to follow the land development code it is a code, and it has that information on there as to what's permitted and not permitted depending on the zoning district that you're in. A copy of this code would also give you a copy of the code would also give you a subscript.
You're all right. I see you.
That points to that section that says other accommodations. And so the other accommodations has a definition as well, and those other accommodations what you're reading. And so, yes, guess based on the definitions in the statute, yeah, it includes, when I have to put glasses on to see now, I gotta get back down. But it includes rental units intended to be used by transient persons or tourists for overnight or short-term lodging. And so this use thus included, and it continues to include vacation rentals as defined in Florida Statute 509-242 and grandfathered from the 2011 amendments to Florida Statute 509.032, subsection 7. So that's what we rely on in terms of our enforcement, is that those areas, unless it's actually permitted in our code, and there are zoning areas such as if you were looking at this,
I didn't go to law school for this very reason. And my father's a lawyer, but
yeah, you asked for an explanation. That's the only one I got
but
for you.
See how I'm saying? I'm just saying it's very, unless you're a lawyer, it's very hard to.
Well, actually, if you had come in and asked for, permits and licensing and advise them of your intent to have a short-term rental, they would tell you.
I came into permits and licensing one time, and I said that one picket on my fence had blown off in the hurricane. And the gentleman told me that I needed to pull a full permit to replace that picket. And I thought that was a little bit outrageous, you know what I mean?
Did you come and ask them about the ability to do short-term rentals?
No, I didn't. I mean, I did. I asked years ago, they said that if you're on a major, like A1A, on a major thoroughfare across from a hotel, that it's okay. I've also asked that at my meeting, the Seabreeze, Anita Gallatin and Seabreeze Association, where this particular building is, it's not, it says here, your neighborhood, my neighborhood with that building is Lollipop Strip Club, Grandview Live, police station, Sunoco station, a 6-story parking garage, the backside of a corporate building, 2 hotels and A1A. There's not one single family residence anywhere. It's an extremely loud area. There's trucks unloading, there's people parking cars, there's all the noise from the A1A and it's not a residential area at all. And it's really not conducive at all to long-term tenants. If any of you don't believe me, you're welcome to stay there. Bring your family during bike week. You can stay for free. And at the end of that week, if you honestly believe that that is a fair place for a long-term rental, I agree with you, because it's not. And the noise there, it's constant. The noise at the Sunoco station, Kevin, I don't know if you stay there at night, but it's not, no human being family could live there in a long-term rental. It's not possible. Maybe it was in 1980 or 1950 when they did that, but.
And Mr. Magistrate, we're not arguing against Mr. Brown in terms of the logic of the law. We're saying that is the law, that our zoning districts are defined in our code, and in the zoning district where his property is, it's not permitted, and he's in violation.
Okay. Mr. Jackson, I recall when we started these proceedings some years ago, that part of the presentation included the page from the Land Development Code. And my recollection of that is the city has instead of stating in single-family housing you're allowed to do this or this, there's this huge table. And some things are allowed and some things are not allowed. I guess if they're not allowed, unless they're marked allowed, they're considered not to be allowed.
That's a description, if you wanted to see the standard table.
Because that is what Mr. Brown or any citizen of the city would go to, which is the Land Development Code. It's readily available. It's online. And he is in what district?
BR1.
BR1. Okay. This is not a redevelopment, it's for redevelopment districts.
Okay.
So
We can't put that on the projector, can we?
I guess what I'm saying is I can't help
But
it if the area is, or those dwellings are miszoned. It's not, they're clearly miszoned is what I'm saying. The zoning that's in place is wrong. I'm not saying what the land code is. I'm saying it's clearly, if you live there during bike week, you'd say, no, this is not a residential dwelling area, it's not, it's miszoned. It's clearly 100% a tourist area. It's miszoned.
Mr. Brown, I think the magistrate has heard this before, in the sense that.
Okay.
Wait, hold on, let me say what I'm saying. In the sense that there are some things that probably would love to see changed, but the nature of the law, the way that the Florida statute adopted that law, if we make any changes, we lose all authority to have any regulations. And
That
so
may be.
until they change the Florida statute, we can't make any changes to our existing law.
Regardless of that, you still don't live there, and you don't have to put up with that noise. That's great and everything, but I'm sure there are different properties and stuff, but if you live there, you would realize that this could not, you would have to ask that bike week and all these events have to be stopped, because aren't you entitled to,
As I said, I'm not trying to really debate your.
I'm not either, I'm just saying,
hold
but
on,
let me ask you
say.
this, aren't you entitled to quiet enjoyment of a property if you actually have a property?
What I'm saying is, I'm not challenging the logic of what you're saying. You may be absolutely right.
I
I'm
am,
just
I
saying
know
that
I am.
our code is what it is, and we're left
okay.
with it, and we don't have an ability to change it at this time. And so it is prohibited, and that's why you were brought before the magistrate.
Right, I get it. But it's not, it doesn't like any, if you asked 1,000 people across the world, would you allow short-term rentals there? I'd be surprised if you weren't finding me for not doing short-term rentals there because it's so counter to a residential place. You know, with the city has these bike weeks and truck week and all the noise and they support that. There's strip clubs everywhere and tattoo places and marijuana dispensaries, liquor stores, but God forbid you did a short-term vacation rental in Florida, right across from the beach. I mean, it's very strange.
This is why I don't pull a book out. That chart really doesn't work.
The other thing is this Florida State 509032, paragraph 7. What does this mean? Local law, ordinance, or regulation may not prohibit vacation rentals or regulate the duration or frequency of vacation rentals. What does that mean?
I'm ready to move on whenever you're ready.
Okay.
It's probably easier on the website too.
It's much easier to identify on the
Yeah, you showed them, okay.
electronically.
he saw the BR1.
Okay, he did see it, okay.
Okay.
It's a lot more challenging searching through that LDC book because the tables do not fold down and so forth.
Yeah, but it's
Why wouldn't the BR1 say no short-term rentals right on it, like in, red letters?
on the website.
It does pretty much. Instead, it's a capital bold P, but
What does it say, sir?
it's a capital bold P. If it were permitted, that P isn't there, so it's not permitted.
That was on some chart that you showed me. That's not, I don't, you have to dig deep to find that chart. I'm not, all right. I mean,
Residential beer house
There's nothing else to this.
redevelopment district.
Yeah, I don't think we have anything further, Mr. Magistrate.
Well,
yeah, the only thing I saw is FS 509.032 paragraph /7, which says a local law ordinance regulation may not prohibit vacational rentals or regulate the duration or frequency of vacational rentals. What would that be? That's I don't even
Okay.
care about the vacation rentals, frankly. All I'm saying is that property between you, me, and everybody else here should be allowed to do vacation rentals because the amount of noise, the amount of tourist activity there. I mean, it's very strange that it's not. It's bizarre.
okay.
In my opinion, I mean, anyway. Yeah, there it is. I mean,
I'm going to have to ask the city. I used to do this type of thing for clients, and I know that I am looking at Land Development Code, page 5:21, table 2.2.A.2, principal use table for residential, business, industrial, tourist, and specialty districts. And at the top it says P, permitted by right, S, allowed with a special use permit, blank cell, not permitted by right. And when I turn to the business district, BR-1, the only thing that I see that has a S allowed with a special use permit is warehouse, storage, and distribution. I see nothing that says other than that is permitted by right.
Okay.
And if it's not permitted by right, then it's not allowed.
That's correct.
So I don't see anything in here that would allow any type of residential use in a BR-1 district.
That's correct.
And now I turn to these other ones for redevelopment districts, but this isn't a redevelopment district.
That's correct.
So I'm not seeing anything that authorizes, and if it's not authorized, it's prohibited.
That's correct. I think the
Yeah.
TR1 or T1 district is only place where it is authorized.
Okay. So,
T1?
Mr. Brown, you asked a fair question. And I think that's an unfortunate downside of a code that's I think it's 1,500 pages long.
Lobby the legislator in Florida.
But the language in the code is quite clear. If something is not allowed, then it's prohibited. And so, therefore, using it for some type of short-term rental, which is a residential use, as I see it, is not allowed. I mean, and that would apply to any other use other than the uses that are specifically allowed in that district.
Well, a dwelling is allowed there. It says dwelling.
It can be a hotel. He's correct. You can make a hotel there.
A hotel, motel, I could put a cell phone tower up to 200 feet or something, or...
But not other accommodations, not short-term rental,
Right.
which we're not in dispute about.
And so...
Isn't a hotel short-term rentals?
They have
Ms. Magistrate, it
I
sounds
think
like
we're getting
yes.
into definitions that actually exist. A hotel, am I correct that a hotel use is specifically defined in the code?
Yes, but in addition to that, Mr. Magistrate, it seems that Mr. Brown has at least some general understanding of this code and charge, as he's able to even note the things that he see that are permitted. And I think it's been well argued that this is a situation where where his property is located in the B1 zone, it's not BR zone, it's not permitted. And so because it's not permitted, he's in violation, and we're just asking to move forward on it.
Okay. It's also my understanding that there is a district where short-term rentals are allowed. And that is the only location in the city where they are allowed. And does his property fall within that district?
It does not in any of the T zone,
Okay.
T district.
How could that be? I mean, I'm right in the heart of the tourist, area there.
Those are legislative issues he can bring before the commission or ultimately to the state legislature for opportunities to change.
Mr. Brown, you're probably not the first person who has stated that there are issues that folks seem to have with some of the arrangements of zoning, but that is stuff that was approved by the city commission, and the rationale.
It's just 1981, right? This zone was done in 1981, if I'm not mistaken.
It may have been, but the actual land development code was much more recent. Was that like about 10?
Yeah, the
10 years ago?
Well, it's not revised. So reprinting when we moved to the Unicode. That's what I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was more recent. But the zoning is always being modified in accordance with our comp plan and the approvals of the planning board and ultimately the commission on where things should be and shouldn't be. This situation, this is something that was there. He may be right. It may have been much longer, but it's here now. It's been here since in 2011 when the statute was adopted, and it remains a prohibited use in that zoning district. And if he wants changes to that, this isn't the venue for getting those changes.
That's a legislative issue.
Yes, correct, sir.
Okay. Mr. Brown, as it stands right now, the burden to some extent lies on you because all of the code does not indicate that this is a allowed use. And there's nothing at this point that would suggest that it is. And so therefore, I don't see that further discussion of this issue is appropriate. Do you have anything else you wish to raise?
No, I mean, I already had a meeting about rezoning it, or I would think that it'd just be a variance. Isn't a variance? I looked up a variance. Wouldn't a variance be a simple variance? Would be where nobody would argue that nobody would have a problem that building did short-term rentals. Nobody would. Nobody in the neighborhood. Nobody anywhere.
Mr.
It's not
Brown, my understanding of the statute is with respect to short-term rentals is if the city was to start adding short-term rentals, then they would essentially lose their ability to regulate short-term rentals.
Under the current statute, that's been the interpretation, yes.
Okay.
Why wouldn't the city want to add short-term rental? I don't understand
I
that.
guess this discussion is probably a bit beyond the jurisdictional consideration.
Again, what the city wants to do or not to do is a city commission
All right,
question.
I'm sorry to waste your time. I'm
Not
sorry.
before this entity.
The city can reread their position, which kind of explains why we did it. In the end of the speech, if you recall, I mentioned how we had a lot of community complaints that led us to make this.
Right, except, see, I'm no offense to, again, my community there is it's 2 strip clubs, a liquor store, 2 parking garages, and a Sunoco station, a police station, and 2 hotels
Mr. Reggio,
anyway.
Yes.
some of the questions he's asking can be taken to planning, and he can set up an appointment with them and
I
ask them
think
some
from his
questions.
own expression, he's already discussing
I agree with that. I'm not here to decide what seems appropriate in any given district. I'm here to look at the code as it applies to existing districts. And if there are changes necessary, then there is a venue for you to go and seek those changes, but this is not the appropriate venue.
Okay, thank you. I know that.
Mr. Yates, do you have anything further?
No, sir.
Okay.
Nothing further.
All right. And what is the city requesting?
$1,000 fine.
Okay.
This windfall.
I don't see any reason not to assess the $1,000 fine. I mean, it's whether or not the landowner thinks that it's appropriate or not is somewhat irrelevant in this proceeding. So therefore, with respect to case number 3, RTL 022512, I hereby find the respondent, William A. Brown, as the owner of the property is 619 Glenview Boulevard, to have been in noncompliance of Article 4, Section 4.1a, and Article 5, Section 5.2.8.2 of the Land Development Code, which prohibit short-term rentals in zoning districts not zoned for short-term rentals. Such violations are irreparable and irreversible because improper benefit obtained by the owner and the damage surrounding the neighborhood occurs at the time the violation occurs and cannot be undone as provided for by Section 162.091D Florida statutes, and the property has subsequently been brought into compliance on
February 4th, 2025.
February 4th, 2025, and hereby order that respondent shall pay a fine in the amount of $1,000 and not violate that section of the Land Development Code again, and that for any future repeat violation, respondent may be placed on a subsequent agenda for hearing before the special magistrate for consideration of a fine of up to $15,000 for each occurrence as per Chapter 162 Florida statutes. And Mr. Brown, this may be something you might want to take up with the city planning office.
I already have, but they said that it must be the hotel lobby is so strong. Obviously, there's something about, that they're getting paid by the hotels or something. I mean, because I invite anybody there here to stay there during bike week in one of those apartments, and tell me if you honestly think that that should be. It's not right. It's absolutely not right.
Mr. Brown, this also doesn't prevent you from speaking with your city commissioners as well.
I mean, it's what is and what should be are two different things, but that's the way God intended it, I guess. I mean,
Okay. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Case number 5, RTL 022514, Paul and Elizabeth Nitoli is cited for failure to correct violations of the Land Development Code, Article 4, Section 4.1A, Article 5, Section 5.2.A.2 at 416 North Peninsula Drive.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
We can't hear you. Are you muted?
Can you hear us?
There you go. Could you state your names, please?
I'm Elizabeth.
They're speaking, but I'm not hearing anything.
You hear us?
Do you have your microphone turned on?
Yeah, microphone's on.
It's on loud.
Hello?
There you
You
go.
hear?
Okay.
There you go. Could you state your names, please?
Yes, Paul Natoli.
And Elizabeth Nitoli.
Could you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Yates.
The case before you is a zoning violation. This case was field generated. The property is zoned RP. Other accommodations known as short-term rentals are not permitted in the zoning district. The violation was first observed February 6, 2025, and they were notified the same day. Property stopped actively advertising as of February 11, 2025. The daily posted rate was $362, and it displayed one review. These actions are irreparable and irreversible in nature, and due to the actions of the property owner, the city is requesting a one-time fine of $1,000.
Okay. Ms. Diaz?
Yes, you could waive it. We heard.
Thank you.
Okay. then
Yes, thank you.
Let the record reflect that the respondents have waived a repetition of Ms. Diaz's presentation regarding these such violations being irreparable and irreversible as presented in case number 4, RTL 022513, and therefore please incorporate that argument into this proceeding.
Should we speak?
Okay.
Oh, yes.
You
Should
have
I start
anything further,
speaking?
Ms. Yates?
No.
Then, Ms. Natoli, Mr. Natoli, this is
Yes.
your opportunity to speak.
Okay, thank you. I just want to tell you, thank you for giving us the time to do this on Zoom. Since we live in New York and I'm 9 months pregnant, so I couldn't fly. So thank you for that. And we just wanted to say we purchased this home in November, the middle of November, which was 3 months ago. You know, ideally our plan was our growing family, we were going to move to Florida, but something happened with my husband's job. So, you know, we have 2 mortgages right now. So we put it on the MLS through our realtor to long-term rented. So it was on everywhere just for long-term rentals. And then we couldn't. And because we're paying like 2 mortgages, they recommended, which now I know we couldn't, to Airbnb it. And we only did one, which was in January. And she only stayed 3 days. And as soon as they told me, we took it down. I had no idea, but ideally it was just because we were in a bind and I thought you could do it monthly. So we only had that one lady and she only stayed 3 days. And that's, really, that's the honest truth. We had no idea. And we're actually going to sell the house. We just put it on the market because we cannot afford both of our mortgages. And this is just something that happened that, you take a chance, and our chance just didn't work out. Our plan didn't work out the way we anticipated it. And, we're two honest people. I have two little kids, one coming on the way. And this was not something that, we got the letter, and I was like, oh, so anxious. And, this is not something that we were ever anticipating happening. And this is why we're going to sell the property, because we can't afford to keep both. And it's still online for long-term rental. But we put it for sale because we couldn't rent, no one's renting it. And I can't afford paying both mortgages. So I would just, ask just to please give us a chance, because, $1,000 is literally a lot for us, especially right now in this moment. And I would just ask you, please just, people make mistakes. They all get second chances. And if you could really just, put into your hearts and think that, there are certain honest people out there that try to do good. And, this just didn't work out, like I said, like we planned. And that's all I have to say.
Okay. Mr. Natoli, do you have anything to say?
No, I think my wife just said everything that needed to be said.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. And City, do you have any response?
No.
No, we have nothing to add. Do you have something to add?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have something to add?
No, I mean, I'm kind of in the position I'm always in, Mr. Magistrate, which is that, it's well within your discretion if you want to adjust, or we try to stay consistent with making our minimum $1,000. The circumstance, I understand and hear their circumstance, and I'm led more by their circumstance than any that I've heard in quite a while, but nevertheless, I'm trying to be consistent in the manner in which I make my recommendations, even when I have people who seem very trustworthy and believable.
The city would like to make a small change in recommendation to 750.
Okay.
Just given the totality of the circumstances.
I accept that as well.
I can go along with that. Now understand that the fine is something that, as was stated earlier, essentially runs with the land. It can be paid in 30 days, or it can be paid out of the proceeds when the property is sold, because essentially it becomes a recorded document if it's not paid, and essentially becomes a lien against the property. So I understand that what you're arguing is that money is tight, and I can certainly understand that. And so, I think that would be appropriate. Okay, so therefore, in case number 5, RTL 022514, I find the respondents, Paul and Elizabetta Natoli, as the owners of the property at 416 North Peninsula Drive, to have been in noncompliance of Article 4, Section 4.1A, and Article 5, Section 5.2.A.2 of the Land Development Code, which prohibits short-term rentals in zoning districts not zoned for short-term rentals, and such violations are irreparable and irreversible because the improper benefit obtained by the owner and the damage to the surrounding neighborhood occurs time the violation occurs. It cannot be undone as provided for by Section 162.091D Florida statute. The property has subsequently been brought in to compliance on February 11th, 2025. Am I correct on that, Mr. Yates?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And hereby order the respondent shall pay a fine in the amount of $750 and not violate that section of the Land Development Code again, and that for any future repeat violation, a respondent may be placed on a subsequent agenda for a hearing before the special magistrate for consideration of a fine of up to $15,000 for each occurrence as per Chapter 162 Florida statutes. Okay. We have one final case, case number 6, RTL 012506, MP Lake Forest LLC, cited for failure to correct violations of Land Development Code Article 4, Section 4.1.a, Article 5, Section 5.2.a.2 at 500 Jimmy Ann Drive, 111.
Could you state your name, please?
My name is Marissa Jenkins.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Ms. Jenkins, how can you speak today on behalf of MP Lake Forest? What's your relation?
I am the community manager of the apartment complex. I did bring my card in case you needed it.
Oh, okay. All right. Mr. Yates.
All right. Since the last hearing, the listing was removed the same day as the hearing. They acted immediately, and under those conditions, the city would like to ask for a $1,000 fine.
Okay.
I just have to come up and ask. Have you heard the speech that I made earlier?
I have.
Would you like me to reread it, or do you waive the reading?
I can waive it.
Thank you.
Of course.
Okay. All right, let the record reflect that the respondent has waived the city rereading its presentation on irreparable and irreversible violations, and that presentation as set forth in case number 4, RTL 022513, is hereby incorporated into this proceeding. All right. And I didn't catch your name again.
Marissa Jenkins. 1 R, 1 S.
Ms. Jenkins, I take it the city has nothing further to say?
No, sir.
Okay. Ms. Jenkins?
The only thing that I would like to say is that it is in our lease that we do not allow subletting or short-term leases. This was a resident who went and violated their lease. We were not aware of the listing, and we were certainly not aware that even if they, as a resident and a leaseholder, list the property, that it does still fall on the ownership, which we now understand and have put it into our weekly routine to scrub these websites, any ones that we can think of, because we don't want those either. We prefer, we screen all of our residents. We want to know exactly who is on our property. So this was in non-compliance with us as well.
Okay. And Mr. Yates, what was the city asking for?
$1,000.
Okay. Refresh my memory how it is that MP Lake Forest is being cited for a violation by one of your residents?
When I spoke to Mr. Yates, he informed me that we are essentially responsible for our residents and their behavior. And while we did not catch this and we were unaware that it happened, it essentially falls to us because we are the owners.
Okay.
The owners of the property are the one who must be cited in these cases.
Okay.
She did receive it to her door. If you recall the last time, I didn't know, but she showed up with me because she thought that this was completely on her. Now, I will be billing her anything that we incur here.
Okay. Well, then $1,000 is generally what has been assessed in these matters, and that will be what I will levy as a fine in this matter. So therefore, in case number 6, RTL 012506, I hereby find the respondent, MP Lake Forest LLC, as the owner of the property at 500 Jimmy Ann Drive, number 111, to have been in noncompliance with Article 4, Section 4.1.a, and Article 5, Section 5.2.a.2 of the Land Development Code, which prohibits short-term rentals in zoning districts not zoned for short-term rentals. And such violations are irreparable and irreversible because the improper benefit obtained by the owner and the damage surrounding the neighborhood occurs at the time the violation occurs and cannot be undone as provided for by Section 162.09 1D Florida statutes, and the property has subsequently been brought into compliance on, can you give me a date?
January 28th,
Jan-
2025.
On January 28th, 2025, and hereby order the respondent shall pay a fine in the amount of $1,000 and not violate that section of the Land Development Code again. And if for any future repeat violation, a respondent may be placed on a subsequent agenda for hearing before the special magistrate for consideration of a fine of up to $15,000 for each occurrence as per Chapter 162 Florida statutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
There you go. Of course.
Having heard all cases, we are now to item 5, miscellaneous business. Is there any?
None from me.
City?
No, no.
Okay. Then it being 10:34, I hereby call this proceeding to be adjourned.
Everything